Before we begin, I need to warn you, this story isn't easy to hear. It's not about something loud or obvious. It's about the quiet things, the moments that don't look wrong until they are. It's about loneliness, blurred lines, and the kind of silence that changes everything. If that makes you uncomfortable, you might want to stop watching now, because what started as a simple decision turned into something I still don't fully understand. And the worst part? I saw it coming, and I still let it happen. When he asked to stay, it didn't feel like a big decision. He said he just needed time to think, time to figure things out. And honestly, I understood. Life had hit him harder than he expected. So I said yes. I told myself it was temporary, just a few weeks, just until things got better. But looking back now, that was the moment everything quietly began to change. At first, everything felt normal, too normal. We had routines again, morning coffee, short conversations, the sound of footsteps in a house that had been too quiet for too long. And I won't lie, a part of me felt relieved, because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't alone. But that feeling didn't last, because something else started to grow underneath it. Something I couldn't name. It started small, so small I almost ignored it. The way he'd pause before speaking. The way conversations lingered just a little too long. The way silence didn't feel empty anymore. It felt heavy, like something was sitting in the room with us, watching, waiting. And every time I noticed it, I told myself I was imagining things, until one evening I caught him looking at me. Not by accident, not briefly, but long enough for it to feel intentional. And when I turned, he didn't look away immediately, just a second too late. That moment stayed with me, longer than it should have. That night, I couldn't sleep, not because of what happened, but because of how it made me feel. Confused, unsettled, and, if I'm being honest, sane. And that was the part I didn't want to admit. Days passed, and instead of fading, that feeling grew. It showed up in small ways. He'd be around more, not saying much, just present, too present. And every time I noticed it, I told myself the same thing. This is nothing. But it wasn't nothing. One afternoon, everything shifted. I was in the kitchen, just doing something simple, and I felt it again. That feeling of being watched. When I turned, he was there, leaning in the doorway, silent, still. And this time, he didn't even pretend to look away. That's when the discomfort became real. Because it wasn't confusion anymore. It was awareness. And once you're aware, you can't go back. I should have said something. I should have created distance. I should have drawn a line. But I didn't. And I've asked myself why 1,000 times. Maybe it was loneliness. Maybe it was denial. Or maybe I just didn't want to break whatever this was, even if I didn't understand it. That was my second mistake. After that, everything became louder. Not in words, but in presence, in silence, in space. The house felt smaller. Every room closer. every moment heavier, like we were both aware of something, but neither of us was willing to say it out loud. Then came the first real test. Late evening, quiet house. We were both in the living room, and for the first time, neither of us tried to leave. We just stayed there, sitting in that silence, letting it stretch, letting it exist. And that silence said more than words ever could. I remember thinking, this is the moment where something could either stop or move forward, and I did nothing. After that night, avoiding each other became impossible, because now there was something between us, unspoken but real, and every interaction felt like walking a tightrope. One wrong move and everything would fall. Then came the moment I can't forget, the one that changed everything. It wasn't dramatic, no shouting, no confrontation, just a simple moment. That lasted a little too long, and in that moment, I realized something I didn't want to accept. We both knew that realization hit harder than anything else, because it meant this wasn't one-sided. It wasn't imagined. It wasn't accidental. It was something we were both aware of, and neither of us had stopped. That's when the guilt started. Real guilt. The kind that sits in your chest. The kind that doesn't let you breathe properly. The kind that whispers, "You should have ended this sooner." But by then, it didn't feel simple anymore, because ending it meant facing it. And facing it meant admitting it was real. So instead, we kept pretending. And pretending is how things go too far. Days turned into weeks. The tension didn't disappear. It evolved. It became quieter, more controlled, but deeper, more dangerous. Because now it didn't need to show itself to be felt. And then something happened that forced everything to the surface. Someone noticed. Not everything, but enough. A question, a look, a pause in conversation. That moment when you realize this isn't invisible anymore. That's when fear replaced confusion, because now it wasn't just about us. It was about consequences. That night, I made a decision, the hardest one I've ever made. Not because I didn't know what was right, but because I waited too long to do it. The next day, I told him he couldn't stay anymore. The silence that followed was louder than anything we had experienced before, because this time there was nothing left unsaid. He didn't argue. That's what made it worse. He just accepted it, and that acceptance said everything. When he left, the house became quiet again, but not the same kind of quiet as before. This one was heavier, because now I knew something I can't unknow. Some lines aren't crossed in a moment. They're crossed slowly, silently, piece by piece, until one day you realize you've gone too far. And the truth is, it wasn't one decision that led here. It was 100 small ones, 100 moments where I said, this doesn't matter. But it did. Every single one of them did. Now I sit in the same house, the same rooms, the same silence, but everything feels different. Because I know this, some things don't break all at once. They shift, they blur, they change, until you don't recognize them anymore. And maybe that's the scariest part. Not that it happened, but that I saw it happening and didn't stop it. If you've made it this far, I want to ask you something. Be honest. What would you have done if you were in my place? Because sometimes the hardest choices aren't the obvious ones. They're the quiet ones, the ones no one else sees. And those are the ones that change everything.